Did you know the average rental for a property has gone from 38,516 Kenyan shillings in 2000 to 153,052 Kenyan shillings in 2020 March? However, how many of you know your rights and responsibilities when it comes to matters rent? Hello and welcome to another learning lesson right here on Street Biashara with me, Brenda Nyamichaba. And as you can see, I'm on the streets of Nairobi and I'm about to find out what exactly Kenyans understand with the term rent.
I understand rent as paying to live, like you pay to live.
Like you live to maisha lazima ulipe rent.
Lazima yani ulipe.
Rent ni ile pesa wewe unalipwa mwisho wa mwezi kama umekodisha nyumba. Sasa mwisho wa mwezi unalipa rent.
Rent is a consideration that is paid by the occupants of a particular premises in exchange of that accommodation, be it in business premises or be it in residential premises.
Rent is just like the money you pay monthly for maybe a business or a residential home.
It's what you pay to your landlord in the house that you're living, if you don't own it.
Rent is the amount of the money that you pay to a landlady or the landlord when you stay to the apartments.
Rent is some money that you pay when you are after using someone's property. It may be a car, it may be the house where you stay. You can even rent a bike.
Very true.
Yeah, so to me, I believe that amount that you pay, that money you pay after using another person's property on agreement, that is what we call rent.
After going out to the system of Arabia and getting the chance to know what you understand with the term rent, we're back in studio and we're about to break it down for you so you know what exactly it means. And joining me today on Street Biashara is investment analyst from Saiton, David Kingo. Thank you so much for making time. And we're just going to jump right into understanding what is rent.
So rent basically is the relationship, is the amount payable in a relationship between the landlord and the tenant. And in this case, we define landlord as a person who has a property, who has a building, who has a space that someone wants to occupy, and the person occupying, we call him or her tenant. So the amount payable to this particular landlord is what we call rent, because you've occupied their space.
All right.
Yes.
And now could you point out some of the key laws that govern the landlord and tenant relationship?
So it has been defined in the Rent Restriction Act, chapter 296, which has defined the relationship. Then we used to have a bill that was quite elaborate, that was the landlord and a tenant relationship bill of 2007. They defined the relationship between the landlord and a tenant. So basically that's where it is defined in the Kenyan law.
Okay. And is there a regulation that stipulates the amount a property owner should reach?
So definitely it's quite difficult to mention or to be very precise on the amount of rent that is payable to a specific any space that is occupied. But the act and the bill try to define. The bill defines the amount payable as rent as fair rent in terms of any. You can look at any rent or any price or valuation that is paid by people in the same area, then you come up with the value that defines the rent that is payable to that particular unit. It also talks about the standard rate. The standard rate is rate that can be defined by the market forces. What are other people charging that particular area? So basically it can't go precisely and say this particular square feet will be charged like 20 bob. It just gives a standard rate or a fair rate based on the market environment.
Great. Now, lastly, moving on to the last question is, what should someone be looking out for when they're trying to settle for a house, or even the amount they should pay in terms of rent?
So number one is the location of this particular property in terms of, is it feasible for you? Is it like feasible for you? Does it satisfy your want? Does it satisfy the area that which interest do you have in looking at that particular property? Because once you look at it in that perspective, then you try to fit it in your budget. So once you fit it in your budget, then you call, like for example, you've seen a unit that you want to buy or you want to rent a unit like 50,000 a month. So don't go to that particular property alone and you're going to pay rent or you're going to onboard yourself. So go to neighboring properties and see how much they charge. So in that particular case, you will be applying the notion of standard rent, the notion of fair rate, because it will not be logical for you to go into a unit that is being charged around 100,000 a month, then you just a neighboring unit that is very, very similar in terms of structure, in terms of architectural designs, but you're paying quite higher amount. So looking first, what do you want? Number 2, fit it into your budget. Number 3, look at the market around you. Look at the unit around you. How much are they charging? Then you're able now to determine this is the rent that I ought to pay for this particular unit. Then you place your bargain to the landlord.
Okay,
Yes.
great. Such insightful information. Thank you so much for making time, David Kino from Saturn Investment. Now, that brings us to the end of this episode of Street Biashara. Thank you so much for making time to join us here. Do catch us on the next episode of Street Biashara.